Assalamu alaikum and greetings, colleagues. I just want to make sure that the moderation for the upcoming exam goes smoothly and that we are able to comply with what's required in the CAPS document regarding Barrett's taxonomy of cognitive levels. So this will apply especially in the comprehension, the advertisements, and the literature questions. And basically, we cannot ignore Barrett's taxonomy because we are encouraged to use it in the CAPS document. And I've given the page numbers for the FET as well as for the senior phase document. So you may ask yourself, what does this mean for me and how is it going to work for us? And this is basically the outline of it. So Barrett's taxonomy has 5 different levels of questioning that challenge cognitive thinking in a learner. The first one is literal, the second one is reorganization, the third one is inference, the next one evaluation, and the last one appreciation. So these levels of questions, they must be weighted in certain percentages. So for example, literal 20%, right? Therefore, not more than 20% of your marks in your comprehension may be on the literal level, all right? Where learners are simply recalling information, identifying information, and so on. 20% of your marks will be for reorganization, where the learner takes information in front of them in the text and reorganizes them in some way, such as, for example, summarizing it or finding the differences or finding similarities. So 40% of your marks go to inferential questions. And here learners make inferences about the information that they have, like what is implied in the text. And for evaluation, which consists of 10%, learners make judgments about the text, whether it's valid, whether it's fact of opinion, whether it's admirable. And then finally, we have appreciation, which is also 10% of the marks. And here learners give a personal response, or they discuss figurative language, the imagery style, and so on. It's more of an affective response to the question. So basically, to further explain, for the literal, learners identify information directly. All right. For the reorganization, they organize information from the text in a different way. For inference, learners look at what is implied by the information. For evaluation, they make judgments about the material. And for appreciation, they give a personal or an image-based response. Okay. So for example, if your paper was out of 10, it means that 2 of your marks, the maximum of 2 of your marks may be on the literal level, 2 on reorganization, 4 on inference, 1 on evaluation, and 1 on appreciation. And obviously, as your mark allocation goes higher, so will these marks increase, but the percentage always remains the same. So basically what CAPS suggests is that you can combine the first 2 categories, which is literal and reorganization, and you'll get, that will count for 40% of your questioning. And your questions on inference obviously remain at 40%. Your evaluation and appreciation may also be bundled together, and that will consist of 40% of your, 20% of your final mark. And this means that if your question paper were out of 10, you would get 4 marks for the first 2 categories, 4 marks for the second one, and 2 marks for the last category. Okay, so the next question will be, why should we be using Barrett's taxonomy in our comprehensions and literary texts? And these are some of our reasons. So firstly, it obviously caters for learners of differing abilities. It improves the learner's understanding of a text because the learner is not merely recalling or recognizing or identifying the learner is able to engage, the learner is able to look, read between the lines, find implications, make value judgments, and so on. It also develops higher cognitive thinking skills, and this is going to benefit other learning areas in the school as well, because obviously learners don't learn one skill in one learning area. But assists teachers in the creation of high quality material. So if your comprehension, has all of these levels, it means that it's going to be one of the better questions. And ultimately, for the school, it's going to improve the standard at which English is taught. So, to ensure that our paper complies with Barrett's taxonomy, there are two documents that you'll find useful to help you devise your questions. This first one is a shooter and shooter document, and all I've done is taken screenshots from the documents. This particular screenshot is looking at the literal and reorganization level, and it's giving you samples of questions. So this is aimed at the senior phase, but can be used in the FET phase as well. It's helpful because it gives you the kinds of questions in each level. And here are some examples of, the questions for those categories. My next page goes to examples of questions on inference. And the next one goes to examples of questions on evaluation, which is basically one of the larger sections in your in Barrett's taxonomy. And finally, examples of questions on appreciation. But what I really like about this particular document, and I'm going to post it on the WhatsApp group, is that it gives a little sample test. So there's a narrative text, and I know that in home language we don't use narrative texts for comprehension. We mainly use expository text, which are, for example, articles from magazines and so on. Nevertheless, this is a quick story that you can read as a practice, to exactly how to use Barrett's taxonomy. This next page gives us model questions on that little narrative, conforming perfectly to Barrett's taxonomy. It's a really simple representation, but the questions are weighted correctly. And you can have any number of questions as long as your overall assessment complies with the weighting. There is another longer document which also helps. I found it helpful. What's most interesting here is its contents page. And here we find that every category, for example, literal, is further broken down into different sections. And so this gives you ideas for what kinds of questions I can ask in this category. And of course, my next page is the rest of the contents, which does the same kind of thing, break down every aspect of Barrett's taxonomy into sections where you will get ideas for questions. I've even gone all the way through to the end of this document where the authors have further described the questions, like those that belong to the evaluation levels in Barrett's taxonomy. So, and what you'll notice is that these questions seem oversimplified. So this is not a CAPS document, and it's not approved by the education department, but it will give you an excellent understanding of Barrett's taxonomy, and you simply need to adjust the style of your questioning to comply with the Department of Education in South Africa and with the CAPS document. So basically, this is a form that I would like us to use to ensure that our tests and exams comply with Barrett's. This practice engages learners on all cognitive levels, raising the caliber of our papers. And if you fill in this form, this is an example of a best practice because it increases your proficiency in setting papers that develop higher thinking skills. And if you look at it closely, the red markings are an indication of how you would analyze your paper. So I will be posting to the group the two documents that I mentioned, as well as a full copy of this form, which you can attach to your memo when you submit for moderation. So thank you for listening. I hope that this is going to let our moderation be painless, because everyone then will understand, where we are coming from. Thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.